Good morning, poker winners. This is Frank Reese with KeepCalmRebuy.com. Here with the latest video in the series, the 1000 Hand Challenge. In this video, I play 5 buy-ins at NL25 using the default short stack strategy. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can learn more by going to KeepCalmRebuy.com. In this video, I experienced a pretty nasty downswing. You may watch and ask yourself, why this guy is promoting a strategy that loses. Before you make that judgment, I strongly recommend that you watch the previous videos. I'm not going to show you every hand I VPIP, as I have in past videos. Instead, I'll show you the hands that I want to talk about, which happens to start with the first hand, this buy-in. If you've watched the videos of level 2, which is NL10 using the strategy with adjustments, you saw that I often adjusted by making a move intended to influence my table image. Since I play a very tight range, I like to make a fishy looking raise or call in the first few hands to represent a loose player. This hand I check through on the big blind with 6-7 offsuit and see the flop 4 ways. I catch nothing on the flop and probably have the worst hand of the 4, certainly not the best. The flop is checked through, so this is an orphan pot. Default is to bluff half pot when the previous street checks through. Villain 8 check raises, which is a move you see a lot more at NL25 than at NL10. We don't even have a bluff catcher, so we fold. So we go to the next hand with 26 big blinds instead of 30. Since I'll be cutting out such small pot hands the rest of the video, you may see my stack increase or decrease as I go from one hand to the next. Hand number 6 is going to be a small pot hand, but I want to talk about how it sets up the next playable hand. It folds to us when we make the default 4 big blind raise. Player number 4 seems hesitant to give up the button. We flop overcards against one opponent, so our default strategy is to bluff half pot. The small pots are actually pretty important in the default strategy. They're not your big money makers though. They help you keep up with the losses on the blinds. Sometimes the small pots put you below 20 big blinds, which changes your default strategy. Only rarely do they put you over 50 big blinds. 11 hands later, we get ace-king again. Let's think about our image. Observant players have seen us VPIP twice, once to bet fold and once to bet and be folded to. Any observant opponent saw us fold to the only raise we faced. Let's see if that affects this hand. Keep in mind, this is a default strategy. We're not adjusting to manage our table image. That kind of image management is built into the Keep Calm and Rebuy default strategy. With 4 limpers, we should raise 8 big blinds. I slightly misclick and raise to 7. That could have influenced the outcome by inducing more calls than $2 would have. But it doesn't really matter because player 4 decides to limp shove his short stack. Tricky moves like this are much more common at 25 NL than 10 NL. Player 4 was a villain who folded on the button in hand 6, so his range may be wider if he puts me on some bluffs. He has King 9, a hand we dominate. We avoid chopping or being sucked out on, this time. We are over 50 big blinds, so we jump off and rebuy. We'll land on a different table, unfortunately, but we see an interesting hand play out right away. Player 3 on our right has min raised under the gun, followed by a 3-bet and 2 callers. Player 3 4-bet shoves and player 7 calls. A wild table, right? Not necessarily. If player 7 had folded, we might have assumed that player 3's range was wide and bluffy. This run out was crazy. Player 7 turned a set, then player 3 rivered his nut flush. Queen Jack suited is playable in the small blind against limpers. The default strategy treats the blinds as late position, because pre-flop they are later than the cutoff in the button. At 30 big blinds, most of the action is pre-flop and flop. At 25 NL, more players are good enough to know that drawing hands won't get paid off by a short stack, so they fold. At hand 11 we lose connection. Perhaps a bad omen, foreshadowing our downswing. About an hour later we try again. On the 9th hand of the second buy-in, we see ace-queen in the hijack. Again, we see a min raise from under the gun. The last time we 3-bet against a min raise, the player 4-bet jammed and had aces. These min raises from under the gun are something we didn't see at 10 NL. That kind of tricky play will happen much more often at 25 NL. But we've only seen it twice this session, so it may be the same player doing it. We're not adjusting, so we take the default line of raising against min raises. He checks and we follow the default line of betting half pot with second pair. He lets it go. Hand 15, we pick up pocket nines in the small blind. We raise 4 big blinds plus 1 for the limper. We always hope for an overpair, and according to Flopzilla, nines flop an overpair about 17% of the time. So we ran good. With an overpair, we bet 3/4 pot. The turn appears to be a brick, so we bet all in. Let's pause the video to talk about this spot. According to Flopzilla, villain has 22% equity on the turn. This is also the result we get by applying the rule in forward 2. Villain has 4 sixes, 4 aces, and 2 fours in the deck to save him. A total of 10 outs. 10 times 2 is 20. And we get sucked out on. This game is called poker, and poker must follow the laws of math. So we get beat by villains with 20% equity a little more than 1/5 of the time. Remembering that makes it easier to keep calm and rebuy. With pocket queens, we see another min raise from under the gun. I went back and checked it, and it turns out that it is 3 different players who have made that play this session. Players can sometimes be monkey see, monkey do. Since our hand is playable, we make our default raise. With only 9 big blinds, of course we are calling as our default. And we run into a cooler. If you're recording your own play as I recommend, you can go back over hands like this to analyze your play. The question to ask is, if we were adjusting well, could we have folded? I would say no, not with only 9 big blinds behind. If we had had a full stack with 70 plus big blinds behind, we would ask ourselves whether villain has the jack or is representing the jack. But that what if thinking we do off table. For now, we keep calm and rebuy. Hand number 10, we get ace-king offsuit. A fairly predictable steal, and villain may find our re-steal predictable as well. And we run into aces once again. For another cooler. In my book, I said that when there is a raise-re-raise war preflop, it is often ace-king against aces or another ace-king. As a default, we would have folded against a raise and re-raise from 2 different players. I decided not to keep calm and rebuy. Instead, I record the results in the keep calm and rebuy spreadsheet. We lost money 4 out of the first 5 buy-ins. We're stuck $15.39. We played all 5 buy-ins in only 1.5 hours, so our earnings were negative $10.13 per hour. These bad runs can be discouraging, no doubt. Try not to let them get you down. Instead, take a look at your play to make sure it was a bad run, not bad play. Keep in mind that we weren't all card dead. We got the cards, our opponents just got better cards. Link to my book in the description. Please like and subscribe.